Okay guys, so here's the story of how these 8 knives came to be. I'm an Eagle Scout, and so I grew up outdoors, very outdoorsy family, big family, mostly fishing, but lots of camping, lots of hiking too, just outdoors all the time, the good old days, lots and lots of fun. So yeah, I was always around knives, always had them, always loved them, but nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just normal stuff, decent stuff, strong stuff. But over the years, just watching YouTube, lots of knife videos would pop up, and so every now and then, maybe a little more often than a little now and then, but I would click on knife videos and watch a knife or watch somebody talking about a knife. And if I'm honest, for the most part, not too interested, not too convinced. Don't really see the point. Until one day, I watched this Nick Shabazz video. So this is all Nick Shabaz's fault. But yeah, so he's doing a video on this knife, or at least the previous version of this knife, the TRM or Three Rivers Manufacturing Neutron. And then later he did a video on this exact knife, the TRM Neutron 2, with these exact lizard titanium scales. And I remember at the time, thinking like, whoa, that's a nice knife, very pretty knife. And then I remember also seeing the price and thinking, whoa, that's an expensive knife. And at the time, it really wasn't a consideration. I just thought it was pretty, and it was mostly just eye candy, okay? And that was a long time ago. That was years ago. Okay, so just went on with my life, watching videos every now and then. And if I'm honest, the only two knives that really stood out were this one and another knife that Nick Shabazz really liked. That was called the Spyderco Sleaze Buoy. Okay, so those were the two knives that stood out. But one day, I have no clue why, for some reason or other, I just decided, maybe I should look into these modern knives. Maybe I should treat myself to something nice, okay? Because previous to that, I had no clue what these kind of knives were like, okay? What I thought was a knife was something like this. This is what I thought a knife was, yeah? You open it with two hands, close it with two hands. None of this like, boom, the knife flies out, or boom, that thing drops closed. Yeah, stuff like this, okay? One of the first ones I had as a little kid was this thing. I remember this thing went everywhere with me, okay? Shoot, I would still use it if it wasn't so, how it doesn't really open. But anyway, okay, we don't want to take too long on this. But yeah, let's run down memory lane a little bit more. This one. Okay, so when I was in college, this was at Costco. Yeah, I liked this thing. It broke, like all my knives, they all break. Okay, this one. Yeah, very very common knife. This one, I guess some of you wouldn't even call these knives, yeah? The exact same thing, okay? You might wonder why. Why does he have two of the exact same thing, okay? This one's pretty bust up, it's pretty broken, okay? There's this thing called salt water, and I break things. And then my dad, or my grandpa, one of them, had this, got this, and then this, yeah, this is the Boy Scout knife right here. Yeah, that's what I thought were knives, or this thing. Okay, this hunk of bigness. Okay. Anyway, so that's what I thought a knife was. Let me move all of this really quickly off to the side. So yeah, I decided to pick up a knife, but the plan was for the knife to be a one and done. Okay, the one knife to rule them all, kind of like that ring in Lord of the Rings. So I did my research. I looked into different companies. I looked into different types. I looked into different materials and blades and profiles and shapes. And the knife I just kept coming back to was this one. And the plan really was that I'm gonna do my research so well, I'm gonna choose my knife so well that that's it. Okay, that'll be the knife. So I remember when I ordered this knife, I put in the order, waiting for it in the mail. And then when it showed up in the mail, oh, I was so excited. Okay, so I open the package, and when I saw the box and I opened the box and I put out the knife, holy moly, I was just like, wow. I was so impressed. Okay, I really genuinely was. Okay, just swept me off my feet. I was so amazed, and I started using it, playing with it, trying to get used to it. And clearly, you know, the one knife to rule them all, the one and done plan didn't exactly go as planned, you know. And yeah, I guess that's, you know, the story, and I kind of want to say how these things came to be. In this particular video, I'm not really going to tell you how much I like these knives, nor am I going to really rate them or review them. Just kind of saying why they happened, and as they happened, I was kind of proud of it. You know, I kind of saw that I kind of curated a collection, and I was kind of proud of the collection that happened. Okay, so let's just start with this knife. You know, I don't know. And let me tell you some things about it and what it fulfills. Okay, so I got some index cards. So this knife is called the Three Rivers Manufacturing Neutron 2. The way it flies out, the deployment is thumb studs. It has a liner lock. Thumb studs, yeah, with the liner lock. In terms of the handle, the scales are made of titanium, and in this case, they're contoured. Yeah, they're not flat. They have some roundness to the belly. The blade is Magnacut. The country is the United States of America. The price is $375. Okay, and that's not including taxes and not including shipping either. I mean, if it's not free shipping. And the reason, okay, the justification for this thing existing is that it's a USA titanium semi-grail liner lock. Okay, so that's what this knife is. So why didn't I stop here? Okay, well, you know, later on I'll actually tell you that I could have stopped here. I really could have. Okay, but I didn't. So the reason I didn't is when I got it, at first I had a hard time deploying it. Okay, you know, if you've never handled one of these things before, and it's new to you, well, it's new to you. Okay, so I was, you know, when I watch these YouTubers and they just go whack and they fly these things out so easily, well, that's how easy I thought it was. And so I was a little bit surprised that it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. And I thought, well, maybe this method of deployment, maybe it's not the easiest method. Okay, so I was kind of curious about that. So deployment was one of the things that really piqued the curiosity. And the other thing is the lock. Okay, so this liner lock, it's very deliberate. I push it to the side. Okay, I can make it close. Okay, oh, those are all my knives. But anyway, but it's very deliberate in closure. It definitely doesn't free fall. Okay, and when I watched all these videos of all these other YouTubers, there's definitely this fidget factor that shows up. And if you're a person new to the knife world, you know, you might think that that's what it's all about. Okay, especially if you like fidgeting with things, and if you like things like fidget spinners, which I do, stuff like that. Okay, and so I thought, okay, I looked at the other kinds of knives, and the one that seemed really easy was a flipper. Yeah, and so again, I went, did my research, looked at different knives. I knew I wanted a flipper. Okay, I didn't care too much about the lock. Okay, but I thought I wanted something real fidgety, real playful and fun, kind of like a toy, something that I could just flick open and that would drop shut. Okay, and ultimately the choice that I made was this knife. Okay, so this knife, let me go write it down, and I'll go fill in some things that this knife accomplishes. Again, this is not a review. This is not to tell you how much I like it or don't like it. That's going to be the next video. Okay, but this knife is called the Civivi Elementum also II, but they like to do it in Roman numerals. Okay, so the Civivi Elementum II. This one accomplished a different deployment. So now we have also a flipper knife. Okay, it has a different lock. So now we get to experience what a button lock is like. Okay, I don't know if in this video I should go too much into things like that, and I don't even know if you'll be able to see it, but there's like a button with a plunger thing that blocks the blade. Okay, anyway, in terms of scales, we have different scales. Okay, what they call this particular version of the scales, they say that this is shredded carbon fiber with golden shred in clear resin. Okay, what I will say that this knife accomplishes in the world of scales is that it is fancy resin. Okay, and we're going to say that this is the first knife that is not contoured. Okay, so that's that. Okay, this knife was much cheaper than this knife, so it doesn't have Magnacut. Not exactly sure what it is, to be honest, but it's probably in the family of 9CR 18 MOV. Okay, but we have a new type of blade, okay, that we can call Damascus. So it also scratched that itch. Okay, country. Okay, so what this fulfills is, we're going to say that it fulfills what's called low to average China. Okay, now the reason we're putting low to average China is because this knife is made by the same company that makes Wii knives, and that would be a more expensive entry point. Okay, so that would be maybe average or high China. Okay, so the price of this knife, because I decided to get the Damascus fancy scaled version, was $98. $98. Okay. And what is the justification or reason for this knife existing? Okay, well, it's just a popular knife that is highly recommended. And so let me write down what I put over here in my notes. Popular, fidgety, flipper, with a button lock. Yeah, so as you can see, this knife was able to check a lot of boxes that this knife was not able to check. Yeah. Okay, then what happened here? Why did this knife come along? Okay, well, once I realized I'm not gonna just have one knife, it made me want to have some other knives. And I'm a pole vault coach. And after one of my pole vaulters graduated, I took him on a fishing trip. And he had a Spyderco. Okay, and at that point I did not know the different Spydercos. I didn't know their names. I couldn't identify them just by looking at them. But I was impressed by his knife. Okay, and I know Spyderco is a big name brand, and so figured, you know, I may as well go find out what that's all about. So after doing the research, okay, those of you who know, you know, okay, one of the very, very, very popular knives is the Para 3. Okay, so the Spyderco I decided to scratch the Spyderco itch was the Para 3. So let's go write that down. Okay, so this is called the Spyderco Para 3. Okay, what other things does this Spyderco Para 3 accomplish? Okay, so I'm just gonna call this the Spidey hole. They're famous for that. Okay, so if somebody wanted to experience that, that's got that. The lock is different. The lock on this knife is a compression lock. It's kind of like a liner lock, kind of not, yeah. The thing that blocks it is towards the spine instead of this side. Okay, so that's the compression lock. Okay. In terms of scales, okay, so the guy that sent me this knife, okay, he sent me quite the kit. He actually sent me, I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but I think he sent me 4 different clips, 4 different sets of scales, including the original ones. And another set of pins and screws, so that is not purple. Okay, but I bought it for this one. Okay, I thought that was pretty. So what kind of scales are these? We're gonna say that this one accomplishes carbon fiber scales. We have our first customization, yeah. So not just the stock stuff that comes straight from the factory. In this case, the guy said it was called raindrop carbon fiber. Anyway, blade, not gonna write it. It is also Magnacut. Okay, country. I'm gonna put USA / Taiwan. Okay, in this case, this is actually a Golden Colorado USA Earth knife, so this would be USA. But a lot of their knives, and from what I've heard, they're just as good. Sometimes the blades are done in Taiwan. Okay, what is the price on this guy? Well, like I said, yeah, it's got Magnacut, it's custom, and he sent me a load of other stuff, and whether this is a good deal or not, that's for you to decide. But all of that was $200. Okay, that is pre-tax, shipping, like the rest of these. So what is the reason for this? Okay, well, this is our first custom knife, so this is custom. Okay, and I'm gonna call this what I think I've heard Metal Complex call it. We're gonna call it Dead Pelican. Yeah, if you're gonna get a Spyderco, you gotta experience Dead Pelican. Okay, so Spyderco custom Dead Pelican Spyderco. Okay, we scratch the Spyderco itch, and this is a compression lock. Great. Okay, so we're done with 3. Okay, so that's this guy. Okay, so where does this guy come in? Okay, so this guy is a company called Remette. It's called the Wild Species. I'll write that in a sec. But the motivation or drive behind this is there's a very famous knife that a lot of people know about called the Chris Reeves Sebenza. Okay, and I actually went to a store close to my house and I handled two of them, a smaller one and a bigger one. And you know, it is a category, yeah, the titanium frame lock. But after handling that one, that knife is so ubiquitous, okay? It's so famous that I just kind of had to go countercurrent. I just really didn't want to get it. So I wanted a titanium frame lock. That was not the Sebenza, okay? That is really how this thing came to be. Let's go write some stuff about it though, okay? So this is a Remette wild species. Pretty cool, yeah? Okay. So like the Sebenza, it checks the box of being titanium in scales or handle, and it checks the box of being a frame lock. Okay. Anyway, deployment. Okay, so this guy also has thumb studs. Okay, this one is also a flipper, but in this case we have a front flipper. Okay, so we check another box. Okay, front flipper. A lock. Okay, we got our first frame lock, so now we have a frame lock. Okay, scales. I don't think we're adding anything to scales. Okay, because we already have titanium, we already have not contoured. I don't want to talk about whatever treatment they did to make this blue thing have lightning looking stuff in it. Okay, we do have a different blade. Okay, the blade is M390. Country. Okay, what country will we put this? I would say that we are still China, but in this case we are mid-high China instead of low average China, which I think that's what Civivi would be. The price on this guy, the price was $189. Okay. So yeah, I guess that's another thing this thing did. Yeah, it was able to scratch the titanium frame lock itch without the Sebenza price. Okay, I think I like this one for the price. So the reason, I've said it already. Okay, this is a non-Sebenza frame lock. Okay, yeah, and so that's why these are 8 knives to start with. Okay, these 8 knives, like I said, I'm proud of them. They accomplish a lot. Okay, in not that many knives. Okay, so the next knife. Where in the world did the motivation for this knife come from? Okay, this is an Mcusta made in Seki, Japanese knife, and I think that alone kind of says why we went for this knife. Okay, it is also a frame lock, but this time it's a stainless steel frame lock. So I was able to figure out what is a stainless steel frame lock about. Okay. Like I said, we'll talk more about these guys another time. This one is more to show the itches that were scratched. Okay, let me write it down. This is called the Mcusta. It's from the Tsuchi family of knives, and this specific model is called the MC114D. Okay. Okay, nothing new in the world of deployment. Okay, you can two-hand it. You can pinch and slowly one-hand it. And if you get better, at first I was scared to death of trying to flip this thing open. I really was, because this is a scary edge. Okay, but I'm better now than I used to be, so now I can do so. If you're uncomfortable flipping something, probably don't do it. Yeah, you're probably gonna cut yourself. Okay, lock, still a frame lock, so we're good there. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, we're not gonna write that this is stainless steel. Okay, but scales. Here we have our first stainless steel scales. Yeah, stainless steel scales. Okay, And we got some funky blasting going on here, yeah? Okay, so I'm gonna say that what we got going on here is we have some art going on, yeah? So we have artisan scales, okay? Okay, the blade. The blade is also Damascus, so we're not gonna write that again, okay? But my understanding is that the center that is sandwiched in the middle is VG10. So we got another metal to play with. The country, we got a new country. Yeah? The country is Japan. Okay. The price, yeah, the price was what was it? 177. 177. Okay. And the reason, what was the reason for this? Okay, the reason was to get a Japanese artisan stainless steel frame lock. Stainless steel frame lock. Okay, and I might add this one, most people know this, but the non-sebenza is titanium. Okay, and so yeah, the main reason was to get a Japanese artisan knife, but the second reason was to get a frame lock that wasn't titanium. Okay, moving on. So here we have a duplicate, yeah? So why does this duplicate exist? I'm gonna talk about this a lot later, but I was very impressed by the Para 3, okay? Spyderco makes a good knife, okay? But to kind of give a spoiler that I'll talk more about later, I learned that for me, my favorite lock is a liner lock. Okay, I really like liner locks. Okay, I like it more than frame locks, I like it more than a compression lock, I like it more than a button lock. I just like liner locks. So that's one thing I learned I like. In addition to that, I learned that I like Spyderco. Okay, but Spyderco is famous for the compression lock. And so I heard about this knife, a knife that was called the Sage series of knives, where they have Sage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they did a tribute to 6 different locks. Okay, and by choice, I chose the Sage 1, the very first of them, because the Sage 1, it's a liner lock. Okay, the others aren't. And so to me, it mixed the best of 2 routes. Okay, my favorite lock system, liner lock, with a brand I really learned I like, which is Spyderco. Okay, so that's what this is. This is the Spyderco Sage 1. Let's fill out our papers. Okay, so we have Spyderco again, but it fulfills very different needs or purposes. Okay, so this is called the Sage 1. If you want to know what the Sage 2 to 6 do, look it up. Feel free to find out. Okay. Oh, and what I will say is that a liner lock by the Spyderco brand is kind of a rare thing. Okay, they do exist. There are not a lot of them. Okay, so I really like this knife. Okay, okay. Deployment has the Spidey hole again. Lock, got a liner lock again. Scales. Okay, we got a new addition to our scales. Okay, so the carbon fibers on the outside. Okay, and okay, I'm just gonna say Metal Complex hates a lot on this construction, how it's carbon fiber over G10. Okay, so the underneath we have our first G10. Okay, in my case, I couldn't care less. Okay, I figure if Spyderco puts G10 under the carbon fiber, I don't know, maybe they have a reason for that. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know if they actually do have a reason, but it doesn't bother me one bit. Okay, blade. Do we have a new blade here? Yes, we do. Okay, our blade here is S30V. Okay, The country, I'm not going to write it, but this one is, the blade is made in Taiwan. Okay, I don't know how to say the place in Taiwan that is made, Taichung. Okay, but I'm not going to write Taiwan/USA. Okay, we'll just put it as USA/Taiwan. And this is a knife that no longer exists. Yeah, so there is a price premium for trying to get it, because you gotta buy them used. Okay, and so this one was $199. $199, $1 less than my custom Para 3. So what is the reason for this? Okay, the reason for this is it checks a lot of Spyderco boxes that this Spyderco doesn't check. Okay, this one is custom, but this one is stock. Okay, this one has the dead pelican. Okay, this one does not. Okay, some people would say that this profile kind of looks like the shaman or shaman. I have no clue how to say that word. Okay, but more of that round leaf shape profile. Okay, but anyway, so stock, I'm gonna put non-dead pelican. Spyderco, and I'm going to put that it has a rare liner lock. Rare liner lock. Okay, so to me, and it's probably not the case to anyone else, but to me this is a collectible. Yeah, because it has the rare liner lock. Okay, but anyway, that's that. And then there's this guy. Okay, so at this point, I kind of tinkered with some of the Chinese Amazon brands that have good reputations and are quite quality. Okay, and I looked at probably like 7 others as well. We have Remette here, we have Civivi here. Okay, and one brand that kept coming up was Kansept, spelled interestingly. Okay, so this guy. But what is the reason for this guy? Okay, well, the reason, to be very, very clear, is Metal Complex has some crazy pretty knives that are also crazy expensive, that check 2 boxes that are kind of hard to check unless you spend a lot of money. Okay, and so one of them is mirror finished. None of these knives have a mirror blade, and this is not quite super mirror, but it is actually somewhat mirror. Okay, and then the other is this thing called diamond-like carbon. Okay, DLC. Okay, usually you gotta pay a decent amount for a DLC blade, and I wanted to see what is a DLC like. What's a mirror all about? Okay, so that was the reason for this guy. Okay, to find a DLC mirror blade that didn't cost $1,500. Okay, so this one is called the Kansept Apollo. Kansept spelled the way I'm writing it. Apollo. Okay, deployment, thumb stud again. Hey, but we get a new lock, yeah? So we get to try out the crossbar lock. Crossbar lock. Okay. And in other videos, I will talk about the individual knives, as well as how I feel about different locks and stuff. But crossbar lock, okay. Apparently, Benchmade is famous for bringing that to light. Scales. Should I write anything for the scales here? Let me see. Yeah, sure. Okay, on this side, I'm not gonna write anything because the outside is titanium and the inside is carbon fiber, and we already covered those. But this is the first one with an inlay. Okay. Notice this side is materials and this side is like, I don't know, other stuff. Okay. But anyway, blade. Okay, this thing is S35VN. S35VN. So you get lots of different blades going on here, blade metals. Okay. And in blade we get to write 2 more things, right? Because that was the whole point of this knife. Okay, so we have DLC. Okay, and we also have mirror. Yes. Yeah, so I'm guessing you can kind of see the point of what's going on here. Yeah, it's exploring and checking boxes. Yeah, so I go online, I kind of have a certain type of knife that I want to explore. And then I look for one that is appealing to my taste, yeah, in terms of what I think is attractive. Okay, nothing new in terms of country. Okay, and price, I'm sure you would like to know. It was expensive, but not, yeah, I don't know what to say there. Anyway, second most expensive knife, $225. Okay, some of you might be like, wow, that's a lot of knife or not too much. Some of you might be like, bro, all of these knives are crazy. What is this guy doing? Okay, so what is this? I like the reason for this one. Okay, the reason is cheapest DLC mirror I could find. Okay, honestly, point blank, that's the reason for that one. Okay, and then finally, oh, I don't want to spoil it, but okay, so this is the cheapest knife, yeah. So what's this one? Well, Metal Complex talked a lot about this knife. It's a very popular knife. People have raved about it. How shall I say this? I wanted a cheap knife that was actually good. Oh man, that sounds terrible. Anyway, I'm not saying this is not a good knife, okay? But yeah, let me fill out the cards, talk a little bit, wrap this video up, give you guys my summary. Okay, so this is the frequently mentioned Vosteed Porcupine. Okay, Vosteed Porcupine. It deploys with a hole, which we've seen before. But hey, you know what? Let's go right down a non-Spidey hole. Yeah, let's go claim a new box checked. Okay, a lock. Okay, so they advertise this as a top liner. A top liner. And I'm probably too ignorant to know, but to me, it looks an awful lot like the Spyderco compression lock, where instead of pushing the tab with your finger, there is a button to push the compression. Okay, so I do not know if a top liner means that it's a button compression, a compression that's just pushed by a button. Okay, so I'm not gonna write it, but that's what it seems like. Okay, scales. Hey, we checked another scale box. Okay, so this is something very famous, Mcusta. Okay, blade. Yep, definitely a different blade. Okay, so this is called 14C 28N, 14C 28N. Okay, and we do have another thing called PVD. Okay, so PVD, in this case, this brownish, bronzish thing here, okay, physical vapor deposition. Okay, so we got to try out something new there. I'm not going to go into DLC PVD. Okay, country, nope, nothing new there. Price, yes. So this is our cheapest knife. Okay, this is a $69 knife, pre-tax, pre-shipping if shipping isn't free. And so what is the reason for this guy? Okay, the reason for this one is an actually good, cheap knife. Okay, well, all right guys, so at this point, I want to give a summary, but I do want to reference the title of this video, yeah? So the title of this video is 8 knives to start with. Okay, so what do I mean by that? I do not mean that these specific knives are knives that I recommend or that you need to get, although I love what these knives accomplish and I love these knives, and I'm very, very pleased with my choices. Okay, but what I am trying to say is that these knives represent certain archetypes, okay, certain families of knives that you might be interested in trying out or getting. Okay, so you do not have to get a Remette wild species, okay, unless you like it. But what this represents is checking certain boxes, yeah, checking the titanium frame lock boxes. Okay, that's what this does. Okay, and that's the case with all of these. You don't need any of these specific ones, but I will say, I feel like if I were to remove any of these, even this one, and I like to bash on this one, okay, something significant would be missing. All right, so I feel like these 8 knives to start with, kind of need them. Yeah, I remove this one. I don't have that like artistic Japanese knife. Remove this one. I don't have that blinged out blade. Yeah. Remove this one. Oh, we got Spyderco, but we don't have a collector's item liner lock Spyderco. Okay. Remove this one. We have a cheap knife, but we don't have a like punches above its weight class cheap knife. Okay. We remove this one. We don't have the classic Spyderco with the compression lock. Okay. We remove this one. We are actually missing something huge and significant, which is a flipper. Yeah. If we don't have this, we don't have a flipper. Okay. I'll talk more about this, guys, somewhere else. Okay. And then if we remove this one, well, we don't have my favorite knife. Okay. Okay, so I think there's only one more thing I want to say before I wrap this video up. Hopefully, there's something in it that you liked. Maybe you'll check out some other stuff I say. But could I remove things if I really had to? If I really had to pare things down? Yes, I could. Okay. You don't absolutely need any of these. Yeah, you could probably just get by with one of these things. Okay. But I would say this guy I could get rid of. This guy I could get rid of. This guy, like, you don't need this. Yeah, unless you're Japanese or unless you're into Japanese things, you don't need this. Okay. Shoot. Okay. This one stayed so far. Yeah. Okay. All right. I could say this guy too could go. Okay. Shoot. Yeah, I'm gonna take this guy out too. All right. Yeah, like, you know, I think just these 3 things could exist. Okay. Spyderco, I think people need to know what a Spyderco is. Okay. A knife that you really love, and a cheap knife that you could beat the heck out of without feeling guilty at all. Yeah. A cheap, good knife. Okay. That's it.